I just can't see you.
Oh, that's strange. My setup is saying I have a camera problem. Oh, no.
No, that's fine. I mean, we can still hear you though.
Yes, I can maybe try using my phone.
Okay.
That's unfortunate. Maybe I can use another browser also.
I definitely suggest you use Google Chrome because I was having problems with Google Hangouts with Firefox of all browsers.
Right. Yes. So if you want, I can get that set up in the meantime. If there's any questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer. Sorry, this is happening. I didn't intend that.
Sebastian, listen, it's we who are grateful for your time today. We appreciate it. First of all, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit? You're speaking now to the combined Intro to Java and AP Computer Science classes. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and, how's life at MIT?
Good. It's been really great, actually. So my name is Sebastian Bartlett. I graduated from Gulliver in 2015. I was in the Intro to Java class my freshman year, and then I took the AP my sophomore year, and then I worked extensively with Mr. Morel on a project called Sonnet, which was a Special Olympics initiative to create a secure social platform, which was really a great thing. And I'm really thankful for having been able to work on that with everyone. That was a really great project. But yeah, so right now I'm working on course 6.2 is my major here at MIT, which is electrical engineering, computer science. Right now, my focuses are on microprocessor design and disassembly, analysis of program complexity using psychomatic complexity, McCobb's measure, and FPGA design, so using BlueSpec System Verilog and Verilog HDL.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. So, Sebastian, tell us a little bit about what you did, in the Java and in the AP courses, and how that kind of led to working with the Special Olympics and Sonnet. And then I'm sure that the students here have some questions for you afterwards. So
yes,
just tell us about what you basically did here while you were at school in the computer science and engineering track.
Yes. So while I was here with Mr. Morel, we started off with the Java class, right? So that entailed, like previously I had learned C++ before, so I didn't take the C++ class, or the Visual Basic. But it's sort of this curriculum, this track that you go on from like learning what code is and learning the basics of code to learning more and more complex things. And it culminates in the AP Computer Science that I think is immensely helpful. I think that it's easy to sort of not dismiss it, but not take it as profoundly as it really is, because it really prepares you for what is next, right? Like all those things that you learn in computer science as you go through it will really help you to develop a strong foundational skills and like processing abilities of looking at a program and decomposing it into certain parts. And the case study specifically that I imagine, Mr. Morel, that they still have the case study, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That in particular is extremely useful because later on in university and when you work, you're always using code that other people have written, and so you're always interfacing with APIs, and that is actually a really vital skill to have. So programming is more. Go on, sorry.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Sebastian, because we had a Google Hangout a couple of weeks ago with Austin Ramos. He's just got an internship with Twitter. He's studying at Washington University in St. Louis. And he was telling me that it's not necessarily, when it comes to doing work at the college level, it's not necessarily following a particular track or following a certain curriculum like on a day-to-day basis. It's more about being able to learn things, learn new and innovative technologies on the fly, and being able to introduce like these different sets of APIs into your own skill set to be able to create something that maybe a particular client that you're working for in an internship might need. So I want to thank you for expressing it in that way, you know?
Mm-hmm. Certainly. So yes, and then we went on to work on Sonnet because, Mr. Merle, you had approached myself and Darian with this project, and that basically entailed working on a secure social network for Special Olympics athletes that, given the sort of situation, might have additional concerns due to privacy and security. And
Right.
so that was a really interesting project. We got to work on that with Darian and another friend of mine, Skylar, and Faraz. And Faraz is actually here at MIT also, and he's working on Course 6.3, which is more heavily focused on computer science. There's a little bit of electrical engineering. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, and that reminds me, Sebastian, I haven't gotten the go-ahead yet officially, but we're almost near completing a really, really wonderful partnership with some of the people that run the CS50 class at Harvard. And they're actually giving students this year a tremendous opportunity. The high school kids that are enrolled in CS50 nationwide, they actually put out a form where certain kids might be able to present their kind of passion projects at the same time that Harvard is hosting a career fair in December. So I'm glad that you mentioned that Faraz and you are doing things, because we will probably be going up there to Boston at the beginning of December, and we would love to have you and Faraz and Maggie Rodriguez and other students that were graduated from Gulliver. We'd like to network with you guys at one point or another. This is at the beginning of December.
That would be excellent. I mean, that sounds like a great opportunity. And like, I hope that really goes well for you guys. I mean, that sounds excellent.
Yeah, it's a career fair. Google, Facebook, Microsoft, they're going to be there. And of course, they're going to be looking at the projects that the CS50 students at Harvard have actually done. But there's going to be a particular area, if I'm not mistaken, where high school students will be given the opportunity. It's a small venue compared to the rest of the fair, but it'll give them an opportunity to present their projects to the other CS50 college students, and hopefully the people in these tech companies will also walk around and take a look at their projects.
That sounds excellent. Wow, what a great opportunity.
Yeah, right.
So actually right now, sorry, don't mean to interrupt you. I just downloaded Google Chrome right now, so I'm thinking of trying the latest version of Chrome, if that works with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Try to join in through that, and I'll continue with this broadcast, and then try logging in with Chrome and see what happens. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. So I will be right back, regardless if it works or it doesn't work.
Okay, not a problem. So guys, in the meanwhile, until Sebastian comes back, try thinking about questions that you want to ask him, specific questions about the computer science program at MIT, and what kind of projects he's involved in, what kind of projects other students at MIT are involved in, whether it's engineering or whether it's computer science. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far? Questions, comments? Oh, there he is. All right. Oh,
there we go. That's much better.
So basically, Firefox, no, Chrome, yes, right?
Chromium, actually, and an old version of Chromium, so that's why most likely it wasn't working.
Now, Sebastian, that game right behind you, is that one of the ones that you actually built from scratch?
Yeah, this is the one I built from scratch, actually.
Wow.
So, this was a really old cabinet. It was originally a Zaxxon, and this is sort of the thing I work with. So my research here at MIT actually deals with understanding the software and the hardware of these old arcade systems. So right now I'm working with Professor Nick Montfort. You can actually go visit his site. And what I'm doing is looking at binary ROM files. So these are just strings of zeros and ones. disassembling them into basic machine instructions like add, load, subtract, multiply, divide, like really basic things, store words, things like that. And then noticing how that, along with size of code, makes a game complex or not, basically. Okay. So this particular machine is based on Defender, but it actually runs an x86-64 processor, an Intel i3, I believe it is. And so it can run anywhere from MAME, which is multiple arcade machine emulator, so that can run your Galaga, your Dig Dug, Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, that sort of thing. And it can also run Game Boy Advance, Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo. It can run Nintendo 64, GameCube. So pretty much across the spectrum, it's like it's an all-in-one machine. And so I actually worked with Mr. Carballo on getting the coin circuitry actually working, because on these machines in the arcades, right? So the people who were working on them, the people who were operating them, because these machines would break sometimes. There's a little lock down below here. I don't know if it's visible there, right here.
I did.
The camera right there. There is where all the coins fall, and those are the coin slots. And so you can take a few coins, basically. And so the owners of these establishments didn't want that. And the creators of these machines, Atari and so on, that went on to create personal computers and started sort of the personal computing revolution, wanted to make sure that owners felt comfortable knowing that that was a feature, basically, or maybe a bug, depending on how you'd consider it. And so what they did was they added a counter. So this is like your car's counter, where it shows how many miles you've gone. And unless you do some clever tricks and hacking, you can't really roll it down. So every time a coin drops, like the counter would go up. And so like really tiny things like that were actually sort of hard to use. Like I should have used a transistor. I used an electromechanical relay because that's what I had lying around at the time. But we got all that to work. So that was really fun. That
is amazing. Amazing. And I remember one time you were showing me all the different machines that you were working at home. I was just impressed by it. So
yes, I don't know if I can do some screen sharing or something like that.
I think absolutely.
But yes, in the meantime, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I was hoping to sort of talk a little bit about programming and sort of the projects that are going on here at MIT and some of the things that I've noticed.
I want to first introduce you to Patricia Wiskowski. She's visiting us from the Academy. Say hi, Ms. Wiskowski.
Hi.
Doing.
And in the back there, Overlord Jesse DeVera.
How you doing?
Okay. He is in charge of some of the minions that you see around you here. One of the nice this year, Sebastian, is Mr. DeVera and I are actually co-teaching a lot of the different computer science courses.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we're trying something kind of innovative here at Gulliver, where we've got multiple teachers and different classes, but we're pretty much working collaboratively on interdisciplinary projects that involve math, computer science, science engineering, biomedical engineering. So we're hoping that this will be the beginning of something that the school will continue doing in other departments as well.
Right. That sounds great.
So let me start off, guys. Does anyone have any particular questions for Sebastian at this point? Any particular questions?
Let me just preface also by saying that, I just want to be as helpful as possible. I know that high school can be a bit tricky and challenging, especially with the whole college application process. So anything, if you're asking anything, I want this to be as informative and helpful to you as possible. So.
Okay, we have a question here by Christian.
I wanted to know how much MIT was helping you with opportunities outside of school and internships and stuff like that.
How much they're looking for you to have participated in that sort of thing, correct?
Yeah. And what resources does MIT have when it comes to internships and so forth? How helpful has MIT been in that area?
Excellent. Just world-class, phenomenal. So let me answer two parts of the question. First of all, yes. So as part of the application process, right? Grades are a big part of it. Grades are the first step, but afterwards, you do definitely want to have some sort of leadership under your belt, some skills shown there. some extracurricular activities, shown vested interests in computer science and mathematics, STEM outside of school. So if I understood that part of the question properly, that would be my answer. But in terms of internships and opportunities once you're at MIT, I mean, just as an example, for instance, I can't speak to other people's experiences, but I know that just universally, there's just tons of internship opportunities. There are two things in particular that I can think of to mention. One is when you're in course 6, you can get access to this email list, which is for MIT students called the jobs list. And the jobs list is basically, you get around, I'd say, 10 to 15 emails daily. This is consistent. This is not like on an idle weekend or something. Like you get 10 to 15 emails daily of different research opportunities you can do on campus, paid or volunteer work, or for course credit. So I'm actually, I'm a teaching assistant in one of the classes that I took from last semester, 004, which is a computation structures class dealing with microprocessor architecture. So basically, how do we take wires? From those wires, how do we build chips, basically, with a bit of semiconductor technology? And then how do we use these chips to build entire computers that can do any Turing problem, basically, any problem that you can hand at it, it can eventually solve. So that's one part of the story. And the second part is that once I would highly recommend, just in general, regardless of where you go, regardless of high school or college or jobs or anything like that, to make yourself known and to really sort of stand out. Because once your professors know you, like it becomes a much more collaborative relationship. So it's no longer like you, I mean, yes, you are taking a class, but it's much more like you are there with the professor to learn. And that's actually the philosophy of one of the professors that I have this semester that I really greatly admire. His name is Professor Patrick Winston, and he was a strong founder of the Artificial Intelligence Lab here at MIT and worked extensively with Marvin Minsky and Noam Chomsky and so on. And so I actually got to meet one-on-one with him. We spoke for around 2 hours, which was just mind-blowing. I mean, this is one of the people that practically started AI from scratch, basically. And also, so I got another message from my professor that I'm TAing for, mentioning like internships at Apple over the summer with the Silicon Engineering Group that is responsible for making the A6, A7, 11, I think we're up to, something like that, chips in custom Apple computers and phones. And so I've actually recently applied for that internship, and we'll see how that goes. Wow,
that is amazing, Sebastian. I mean, I'm so happy for you. My heart sings with joy.
My hope is that I can sort of bring some of that back. My hope that I can try to help it in whatever way I can, because I've been there. I know how it is.
Great. Well, just to give you a little, just preliminary information, Sebastian, you are looking right now at the kids that have entered projects for something called the Congressional App Challenge. Gulliver has been fortunate to won this 2 years in a row. And what happens is the winner goes to Washington and presents their app in front of members of Congress. And then there at this House of Code event, there are companies like Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and so forth. They go there and they can network, and they also have special classes that the students can take. So it's a really wonderful event. Picture Sebastian, kind of like the engineering showcase that we have here at the prep, but picture, instead of maybe 80 students, picture like 500 students. Oh, by the way, look who's here, Sebastian. I don't know.
You can't see when people are chatting.
Oh, no, he can see you now.
Okay. Yeah, no, like I was watching it.
You were watching it
from the
wow,
from the channel.
Oh wow. How you doing, Mr. Schroen? Good seeing you again.
Yes. Hey, listen, man. I just wanted to touch base. I'm so proud of you, man. You're doing such a great job at sharing. It means a lot to me personally, professionally, and I definitely want to see you in December. So yes, we got to talk, because I definitely, hopefully, this whole thing pans out with the Harvard thing. But I definitely would like to connect with you in December. So we'll talk more about that later.
Certainly.
Keep up the work. I love the game, by the way. It looks really cool. I want to talk about that.
Appreciate it. I built this one from scratch.
That's awesome, man.
Now, when you mean scratch, you're not talking the programming language scratch, right?
No. But that was made here at the Media Lab, and I know.
Anyway, Sebastian, so now that I mentioned this, what do you think about having students do a passion project in high school that involves different departments, different instructors, and it's multiple years. You know how in high school people have a tendency to actually do a project, but then it ends at the end of the semester, or it ends when school lets out for the summer, or it ends when the unit of instruction finishes. What do you think about them doing something that is beyond the walls of the classroom that can continue for several years? What do you think of that in terms of like your peers at MIT? Have a lot of them done things like that in an effort to, to try to reach out to the community and maybe address an issue local or global in scope?
Absolutely. I mean, in a couple of words, in the briefest nutshell that I can say, that's the name of the game, really. But again, on that, so basically, you're completely right in the sense that high school tends to be very compartmentalized, and it's like that. It makes sense that it's like that. There's a lot of sort of like that is there's a lot of things to learn and a lot of base to cover very quickly. But when you're working with research projects, and MIT very heavily encourages students to work on research. So there's the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, and so that's UROP is the acronym for that. And there's Super UROP, which is basically that, but like multiplied by 2 or 3, in the sense that students will go out for like a full semester or a year to different countries to work on engineering projects in the field in those countries. So that can be countries in Africa or in Europe or South America or anywhere really. So that working on long-term projects gets you accustomed to working with certain aspects of development and teaches you some really important skills. So among those is that usually, not always, but usually when you're working in large-term projects, you're working with a team. So teamwork is a huge thing, especially in engineering, because engineers sort of tend, at least, to be really good with code, but not as good with like dealing with situations that come up. So that's one of the things that Gulliver as engineering is actually really good at, I think. With your class, Mr. Morell, and Sharon's class, and all the classes that I've taken, teamwork has always been a forefront of it. And when you can get that synergy right, and it's become a bit of a buzzword, I know, but when you can get that sort of harmony with people and of different talents, that's where you get some really amazing results. So that's one thing. The second thing is that working on a long-term project entails, it's sort of like climbing a mountain in the sense that it starts off maybe somewhat easier, or maybe it starts off right off the bat really difficult. But regardless, it doesn't stay static. It doesn't stay constant. It's not like you're walking along a flat field, right? There's going to be challenges. There's going to be easy parts. There's going to be harder parts. There's going to be parts where you can get lost and you don't know what to do. But working through that and getting to the end, I mean, that is the longer the project, right, the more rewarding and fulfilling that is, both in terms of the end result, what you can do with that end result for the people that the end result is for, also for your own experience. I mean, that can do wonders in a way that it's really difficult to put into words, but it's something that really shows, actually. And furthermore, colleges will be looking for it. And it's a great thing to be able to say that you've worked on it. And if it's a passion project, I mean, that's where it's really at, because passion is sort of a universal language, I think, and people can notice if you're passionate about something.
So Sebastian, I have a lot of kids here in the class, and I know what some of them are thinking. Some of them are thinking, I've got pretty good skill set, I've got pretty good grades, but MIT might be a little beyond my reach, or Harvard, or Stanford. What advice? I mean, you first went to UPenn.
Yeah.
You did an amazing work there. He founded a video game club over at UPenn, and he actually hosted like a tournament where the games that were in the tournament were designed by the students that were running the thing. I mean, what Sebastian's done has been amazing, including that Special Olympics app. It was like a Facebook, but for just the Special Olympics community. Because, in certain communities, there tends to be people that want to sign up for these social networks to try to somehow harm or take advantage of the people in that community. So he created an awesome app while he was here. But Sebastian, what advice do you have? Mr. DeVere and I are privileged to have really, really good students, and some of them will end up in a top-tier university. But what advice do you have to, for some of these students that are thinking, Yeah, MIT, wonderful. I'm so happy for Sebastian, but it's just beyond my reach. What would you say to them, Sebastian?
Yes. So two things, actually. The first thing being, it's always impossible until you've done it. That is fundamental. I mean, fundamental. No one, I can guarantee you this practically. I mean, maybe there's some people who are really confident, but universally, everyone who's gone to MIT, everyone who goes to MIT, or everyone who probably will go to MIT, or schools like it. This is not just MIT. This is Penn. This is Harvard. This is Duke or any school really. Does not believe or does not really feel in them that they can do it until they are there, right? There's always a sense of like, okay, I might be able to do it, and to varying degrees. Some people really believe that they might be able to do it. Some people, there's that really just depends on your own confidence and so on. But it's always impossible until it's done, right? That applies to flight and to many other things, right? Like throughout the course of history, and this is the really important thing of technology is the goal of technology is to always aim for the impossible, right? So what would the point be if you weren't doing that? So that's my one note. And the second thing is this has always been my motto, and this is a motto that I encourage everyone to sort of live by. Well, first of all, it's really important to define your goals, and I understand like this. Everyone says that it's sort of vague. It's like, well, what does that really mean? And like what it means in the context of what I'm saying it is, it's a bit hard to determine when you're in high school, but it's really important to try to figure out what would make you happy in life. And I think that's the really important thing, especially nowadays that the future is like sort of branching out into so many directions and it's harder than ever to predict, I would say. I think it's really important to figure out what makes you happy and what would help you get to where you want to be in life. And most of the time, I would say, getting a good education is really important in that aspect, because getting a good education, especially if you get to like really good schools and so on, it opens up possibilities for you. So where before you would have an idea, for instance, and think, oh, well, that's a great idea, I'd like to do it. And this can be in any field. It can be in technology, it can be in sociology, whatever. You may not know how to approach it. And so there is great merit in trying to figure out your own path. And I would really encourage people to do this. I think it's not done often enough. But if you have a starting foundation, you have a starting point, I mean, it just, you have all these tools available at your disposal. And that's all it really is. And it's really sort of interesting because high school, it's really subtle, but it's a fundamental paradigm shift between high school and college. And the paradigm shift, the way I see it is this. High school like lays a foundation for all of your subjects, right? You're taking history, you're taking languages, you're taking your science, hopefully. Well, everyone in this room, yes, but I would say hopefully most students, right? Mathematics and so on. And then college is more about like honing in on those skills, right? So that sort of leads to my final point, which is to say my motto has always been work the hardest you can and no more. There's two parts of that are really important. So first of all, you never know how far you can push yourself until you try. And second of all, you can't, I mean, it's too easy to be hard on yourself. I mean, I know this from experience, and I think that most people know it from experience. It's just too easy. And it's really important in those moments to sort of step back and remember and notice that if you really gave it all you could, and even if that's not the case, I'd encourage people to give it all they can. But ultimately, it's a learning experience anyways. And sometimes you learn more from failure than you do from success. And so it's really important to acknowledge that and to validate it with yourself and to authenticate that. So.
Oh, Sebastian, I want to try to finish this chat with like a little story that a friend of mine, Brian, told me. He was at Cal Berkeley. He got a PhD in theoretical physics from Cal Berkeley, but he got it in the 60s. Okay. And he basically told me, he said, Dean, Cal Berkeley was like the perfect synthesis of like art and engineering at that time. And he said he would look to his left and there would be a Nobel Prize winning author right there, just to the left of him, like having dinner. And he would look to his right and there would be scientists there that remember colleagues that worked on, for example, the Manhattan Project and all that, I mean, is that the feeling that you get at MIT?
Yes.
That everywhere you look, you've got Nobel Prize winners, you've got people that are on the cutting edge of technology, just trying to push the limits of human knowledge just that much more. Is that the feeling?
Yeah, and that's
Wow.
really more than, and this is the advice that we give to special students that arrive here on campus at MIT. So I was helping out with that this semester in computer science. And so basically, like those are students that are coming in from universities in like China, and we had a lot of people from Norway actually, in different countries. And so to answer your question, one of the things we say to them, and this is astoundingly true, it's been true in my experience, and I'd say just overall, like the classes are amazing, right? Like the classes are going to give you a foundation, but where the real learning happens, where the real sort of magic happens, is outside the classroom, is talking with people, because these people, many of them, I mean, even your fellow students and peers and so on, either they're extremely driven and or really imaginative and creative and really talented. So you can work with them on making the next big thing, which is sort of like, if you're passionate about it, this is the thing, right? So if you're passionate about these sorts of ideas, about knowledge and about expanding the understanding of what we can do and pushing the limits, then it's really an amazing experience to be surrounded with people that have that same passion. And you can just go up to a professor, like I was saying, for instance, with Professor Winston. You can go up to a professor that has had insurmountable numbers of awards, like unbelievable amounts of awards, who have done amazing work, who have established their field practically. You can go up to them and ask sort of any question. I mean, I remember there was at one point, I'm not sure if now, but the person who created the notion of evolutionary cosmology, and so you might know that from ideas such as the multiverse and so on, Alan Guth, professor at MIT.
Brian Greene also, right?
Right, Brian Greene, yeah. Brian Greene is working more with string theory, and I'm fairly certain that he's in Columbia University.
Okay.
Him and Michio Kaku works with theoretical physics.
All right.
And they're all amazing people. But so Alan Guth in particular, for instance, at MIT, was teaching an introductory class on evolutionary cosmology, the field that he created, and with PhD and that whole thing. So you could go in as a freshman and talk to the founder of these topics and ask like anything you want to. And if you're genuine enough, like if you show enough passion and interest, I mean, these professors understand that the students who go up to them are people who will eventually do great things. So they treat you more as like an upcoming colleague rather than as a student that is like, oh, well, go do your homework and then let me know, right? Like, it's not like that. The fact that like anyone can go up to a professor just casually and be like, I'd like to discuss some things with you and hear your thoughts, and then be able to chat with them for 2 hours on these topics. I mean, that's just mind-blowing. And I mean, these are amazing people. I mean, people in the press don't get that opportunity. I mean, this is how amazing it is. Right? Like, no one practically outside of like people who, I mean, that's the thing, right? This is just the environment that you find yourself in. And does wonder creativity to, I mean, it just opens up doors. I sort of don't like using the expression because it's been cliched, it's been used too much, but it's true.
Well, listen, I'm so happy for you, Sebastian. We definitely need to, next time you're in Miami, please stop by and speak to other classes, because right now this is just one combined class, and I'm actually going to be sharing this video with everybody, but I would love to come down and just talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things that you're doing. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be wonderful. But are there any other questions or
Jacob?
So like when you applied to MIT, like what separated you and like made you different from like all the other people who applied and didn't get in?
That's a really good question. It's a really hard question because we don't really get the answer to that.
I don't think you can to the information from the other students, right?
Well, in his opinion.
In your opinion, Sebastian, what do you feel?
Gave the readers
Gave right. Admissions officer, they took you out of this pile and put you in this smaller pile, and they said, okay, let's bring this guy into MIT.
Right. So I'll answer in general, basically. Like, it's sort of a difficult reality because it's becoming just more and more increasingly difficult. I mean, it's just it's unfortunate, but I basically laid out as I see it. Rather, I can't really speak to much claims of objectivity, or not. I mean, objective, yes, but like sort of truth. I don't entirely know, right? I don't think really anyone does outside of the admissions committee themselves, and especially that particular commission's committee that you just happen to be sort of assigned to. But the way I see it in general is grades are really important, like because you need to be able to show that you're capable of doing the workload at MIT. And if you've heard the expression that it's sort of a fire hose, it's really true. It is like basically it's like a dam breaking on like a really giant pile of water behind you. So as soon as that first crack comes in, like water starts leaking and then it just sort of flushes out and like just in massive amounts, like you get a ton of things to do. But the thing about that is the one thing I always feel it's missing from that statement is that it's really rewarding and satisfying. Like that is the one thing that I think keeps people going. Because if think about it, if it was this amount of work that's just insurmountable, then people wouldn't really be interested in doing it, but they are, right? So that's one thing. But to go back to the question, given that, you need to be able to show that you're capable of handling it. And the general principle behind all of this, behind resumes, behind activities and grades and so on, is that your past performance is typically a decent predictor of future performance. And that's sort of this idea of temporal locality, which is actually a principle that we talk about in computer architecture quite a lot. That and spatial locality. So grades are the first thing. And after that, once you show that you have the grades that basically show that you can do this workload, what they're looking for are people who can contribute to the community. And the questions are usually phrased around that aspect and like the whole philosophy, because even the motto of MIT, mens and manus, right, is like thinking to perform some acts of goodness and to make the world a better place. And so usually, right, like you can show, like that's where people can really stand out, is like exactly sort of alluding to the earlier question, like do they check for activities and for your involvement in things? And the answer is absolutely. And I think that's sort of where it is. I would say that so far that's sort of pretty much standard fair answer, and I'm not entirely content with giving you just that. So I will say one more thing, and that is that, again, passion is really important, right? So being able to show that you really care about these things and that like the thing is genuine, right? You're not interested in MIT just to get a good job or just I don't know, but that you really do care about this. And it's a really hard thing to answer, because what's genuine for someone is not genuine for anyone else. That is the one defining feature of who you are, and that can't be replicated by anyone, right? So that is sort of the key element, I would say, to make your voice stand out. And it's hard to put into practice, but I would say, again, it sort of alludes to the earlier thing I was saying about trying to be happy and finding happiness for you. It's the same sort of principle, right? Like there is generally some idea of, well, this is a good thing to add to a resume or to an application. And like, this might be good, this maybe not, right? That is okay. But when it comes down to it, the final decisions, what your application, the application is a snapshot of who you are, right? And the admissions committee is looking for that. So what ultimately comes out, if it's coming out as like a template, if it's saying like, okay, you have your GPA, your, I don't know, 3 point something GPA, you have your this, your that, your community service, right? Like that is easy to sort of gloss over if it's the same, or if it's like some sort of, if you don't stand out. So that's your one chance of really showing who you are. And I'd say take that opportunity. Right.
Okay, Sebastian, listen, thank you, buddy. Thank you. This has been very, very illuminating.
I hope so, because I just trying to make this as accessible as possible, because I think that Gulliver is really great school. I don't mean to cut you off, Mr. Mel, but another thing I've always said is that you get what you give, right? So I think that you still follow this philosophy, Mr. Mel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, like I would say, at Gulliver, get to know your teachers really well. Become friends with these teachers. I mean, they really care for your education and for giving you a good, solid foundation and for getting you to really great places. And so, for instance, like I would always work on homework assignments, I think pretty much the day they were assigned, and like finish everything. And afterwards, right, it became sort of like having fun in class, right? Like where I would just code up these things for no particular reason and then show them in class. And then this was this creative environment that really made a great impact. So I would say try to make that happen for you. And that's just a general principle, to try always to make the environment around you just, better in whatever way that you think will be better. So with that said, you were saying
that's nice. That is perfect. That's the perfect ending, Sebastian, to this hangout. I appreciate it. Your candor, your sincerity in this. I mean, it shows. And on behalf of my class and on behalf of the instructors that are here listening to this wonderful advice, thank you, Sebastian.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate your time.
Round of applause for Sebastian. So Sebastian, they're going to have to continue now because they're working on the Congressional App Challenge.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. It's due Monday, this Monday at noon.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they're behind the ball here, but hopefully they'll get everything done, and more to follow for you and me. Okay, we're gonna hopefully meet up in December, and hopefully you're gonna come back and speak to the class. Okay.
Certainly, I'd love to. All right. Well, best of luck. Knock it out of the park.
Sebastian.
Bye.